I would like to do a quick fire round here to introduce you guys yourselves. And please connect that with my first questions. I would love to hear from you. How did you get started in Web3 and how did this journey start? And Hendrik, let's start with you.
Yeah, first of all, happy to have you here. So my name is Hendrik, I'm 34 years old. I'm coming from Germany, a wonderful city called Dorsten. I'm a techpreneur for 7 years now, starting with an augmented reality startup like 7 years ago. And then I come to the space because my co-founder bought a Pudgy Penguin. And yeah, that's the reason why I'm here and why we are in the space.
Luca.
GM. I'm Luca, I'm the CEO of Pudgy Penguins, and I started collecting NFTs in summer of 2020, and I fell in love ever since.
What's Pudgies?
Penguins.
Hi guys, I'm Nick. I'm co-creative director at Claynosaurz. In a previous life, I was an animation supervisor for the animation industry, for creature work, for stuff like Game of Thrones and Paddington. So I've worked with clients like all over the place, like from Netflix to Disney to HBO. And I was always really curious about NFTs, like easily like 2 years ago. I was a collector. I started on the Ethereum side and then eventually went to the Solana side of things. And we wanted to build an IP for ourselves as artists, and it's worked out pretty well.
Thank you for that. I mean, the whole NFT space, Web3, we just came out of a bear market and growing back into a bull market. People are calling NFTs dead. We have survived in many ways and forms and coming back. With you, in your own words, how would you describe, or how would you recommend to people, or why would you recommend to people to get involved in NFTs as a creator and also as a consumer? And we'll start with Nick.
Oh man, okay. So as a consumer, there's a lot of play here. Like you can kind of engage with like-minded community. You definitely find community via the act of just collecting. You can get rewarded for early inclusion. But I think what's most poignant to a lot of people is kind of like making a bet on what you think is going to be a culture play and being invited into that world, into the growth of, let's say, in our case, a company, but of whether it's an artist you're following or whatever. For me, it's kind of like, let's say years ago you were on, if anybody remembers, like SoundCloud. You find Post Malone's like first song, right? And you're like, I think that's gonna be something someday, and I really enjoy it, and I want to consume it. But usually the only reward you get is, hey, I was there first. Like, I'll tell my friends, yeah, I knew this artist before they were filling up stadiums. And but with NFTs, you can kind of say, hey, I'm gonna get their first album as a collectible, but I'm going to be invited into that community, and I'm going to be part of that ride. I'm going to be part of that history of propping up that artist, and along the way I can get rewarded. I can show up to the shows, I can get exclusive access, perhaps share a lot more benefits than that. And I think that's really poignant, is you're kind of like, I think this is going to be something, I believe in this artist, I believe in that product, in that IP, whatever, and then you get rewarded for that bet you've made. And I think that's a really special thing for a lot of consumers. As a creator, you can take back control, and that was certainly our case. Like, coming from Hollywood, like, you see what happens with streaming and with the writer's strike, and we were like, there's definitely a new paradigm in IP incubation we can explore here with NFTs. One, we can hold on to royalties, which was really great for us, but I think it's about de-risking the whole process. Traditionally, Hollywood is highly gated, it's financially gated, it's institutionally gated. As an artist, you can't really just go in there and say, hey, like, I've got these characters I'm working on and I want to build something. And usually it requires a really big investment up front on a long time horizon. So if you're making a TV show, if you're making a video game or a movie or whatever, it's a big risk. You also get no feedback. There's no community building while you're building that product. This is like the traditional Web2 or Hollywood approach. And there's no brand loyalty. And as a creator via NFTs, one, you can monetize early in the development cycle, which is insane because, in our case or in Pudgy's case or in your case, you're essentially selling collectibles of the character without much for storytelling right away. But you can start incubating that way. And now, because incentives are aligned with the collectors or the holders, you have this situation where that community is highly involved. They give you ongoing feedback, which is super important when you're building out or developing IP. And you're accruing brand loyalty, and you can kind of pre-package the whole IP with a fan base and hit the ground running. And it's been an amazing experience.
Thank you very much. Very great insights, because it kind of like resembles the culture of Web3, right? Luca, your journey was there, an interesting one. What would you say on the same lines what are people missing out on if they're not getting involved with NFTs?
Yeah, I think the medium of exchange predicated on the underlying technology around NFTs just makes it a better user experience. And so if I'm collecting physical goods, there's friction when buying or selling. There's storing issues, storage issues, a plethora of things that I think make it hard to physically collect at scale. And I think digitally collecting solves those problems. And so it's just a better medium of exchange from a consumer perspective, and then from a creator perspective, you simply make more money. So
it's always a good one. Hendrik.
Yeah. So I think this is working. Yeah, okay.
Tay, could we increase the second microphone a little bit on the volume, please?
Thank you very much. So,
there you go.
The great thing as a third speaker to answer a question, I say, follow these words. But our reason why we as a creator started on the blockchain is that we can build this community, that we can build fans, and that's the reason why we did it. And that's the reason why we are here. So, great answer.
And I think what Luca said is really poignant on it just makes distribution so easy. So I think one thing we haven't talked about is the effect it has for one-of-one artists. You're essentially tapping into a global audience, and you're flipping the whole gallery system on its ass in a certain way, where anybody across the world can buy your art. Because it's digital, and you don't have to pay insurance to have it shipped over to you. And it's a really frictionless approach to art selling and art buying as well.
Yeah, it's a great beginning also to start in something where you might be a digital native and you want to get involved really with collecting and get into that get your first feet wet, the toe wet, right? That's the right term. Right, I fully agree. I mean, look at with Pudgy Penguins, we've really been one of the most successful projects here available right now, undoubtedly. What is it that, from your perspective, makes a successful project?
I think it would be the community, the ability to proliferate the community and the IP, and the culture. So I've been a huge advocate that I think I'm not a firm believer in utility. I think utility ultimately is a liability, and then liabilities ultimately, create a situation where eventually you either have to kill the liability, in which you become a rug puller, or you just let the liability to destroy you. So I think these things are solely going to win and lose based on their ability to curate and create culture, community, and then how you can proliferate that culture. And so for those of you who are not familiar, proliferating is really marketing. How many eyeballs can you get on that community and on that IP? And that's my belief.
Hendrik, please.
Yeah, and I would just transparency. Yeah, transparency is the key in building. So Luca, you say that every time, and I think most of the people on NFT projects, like teams who building transparency, they build in public, and it's like, hey, the CEO is sitting there, and you can go to Discord every week, and they're speaking to you directly, and you see what they're doing every week with the team. And I think this is a big advantage in comparison to normal brands.
And Nick, on that note, and how do you make it stand out then? If there's, if building the community is the key, how do you make it stand out?
Yeah, there's so many things you can do, and I think the guys are really right. It's community is the absolute lifeblood of this. And for the way, our approach early on was always, one, you have to be present You have to have a pulse on the Web3 ethos, whether it's, you know, the language you use on crypto Twitter, because, you know, there's a lot of like Web2 companies that come in and they're very tone deaf. And our approach was like, no, like we're gonna nurture culture. We're going to curate it as much as possible. We're going to have a lot of events. And it's funny because there's some projects that will say there's not really a return on investment for hosting these events, like the events we're doing at NFT NYC, or in our case at Breakpoint, whether it's like Lisbon or Amsterdam or all over the world. And there's actually a pretty big return on investment, because what you're doing is you're putting all the collectors in a room together. They are building memories around your product. They are building friendships. And you're kind of making that culture a lot more, you're just strengthening that culture. And you want people to have like just positive experiences around your product, which in our case is like our characters, our IP, whatever. And I think to stand out, you just gotta be there. You gotta be active. You have to have a pulse. You have to build a really strong community management team, and just be present as much as possible. I know, you know, Luca is amazing at that. There's a few other killers in the ecosystem that are just always there, loud, and I think you want to make the collectors very proud as well, to celebrate the wins together. Like I think emotional utility is a really strong one. This feeling of greater calling. You know, we recently started our Instagram account just a few months ago, and it's going insanely well. Zane's here in the crowd, and he's like in charge of all the socials there, and you can see that with the collectors, where they're just very proud to have been along for the ride, have taken a bet on this, and as they see the company do well, or these characters get more and more well known by an average demographic, they're like, hey, like I'm holding a piece of history, like I'm holding what kickstarted this company, and I think that's a really special thing. So just like be present, have a pulse on that community, and nurture and care for that community as much as possible. Like talk to them. We're always there. Anyone can DM me. I know it's the same for Luca. I've had like many DMs with you. Just, you know, which is not traditional to Web2. Usually, you know, people that are in charge of companies or at a management level, you can't really access them. And our ethos was like, there's no way. Like if someone messages me, I'm going to take the time. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a different culture from anything that we have seen so far, and we specifically also in the gaming world, obviously coming from that background, it's something that's very close to us, and love that to see, and hope that this will grow further and further. Luca, in talking about community and bringing them now, as you do with Pudgy Penguins, to physical goods again. Explain a little bit more for people that, you know, maybe there are some people in the audience that don't know much about Pudgy Penguins. What is happening here with Walmart, what you're doing right now? What is happening with the physical products that you're now distributing or selling? And then also what's for the future? What do you plan in the future?
Yeah, I think just our thought process is, how do you meet consumers where they are? That's kind of been our principle since day one. The idea that we're moving towards a digitized world is a good idea, and it's an idea that I think will ultimately come to fruition. But in the interim, I think it's going to be 5, 10, 15 years before we really hit escape velocity in some sort of metaverse or world where I think that is really relevant. And I think regardless of when that happens, I think people always want real and human connection, and I think physical products are a great way to do that. I also kind of look at it like a status thing. Like a CryptoPunk is a CryptoPunk because it yields a status amongst 100,000 people that it is a Veblen good. And my thought process about it, or at least about how we plan on building Pudgy Penguins, was, well, if tens of millions of people, or hopefully one day hundreds of millions of people, know and love the Penguin, the holders of the 8,888 will be the coolest freaking people amongst that community and that group. And the interesting thing about NFTs, specifically PFPs, is they're really viral products, and they have a finite supply, one that is not that abundant. And so when you just look at like what it means to create nostalgia, what it means to create emotional impact, what it means to create connection, and then ultimately status, I think your number one objective should be trying to create an IP and a character and a community that tens of millions of people, or hopefully hundreds of millions of people, know and love. And then the math just kind of works itself out. I think, you know, the Achilles heel that we've seen like every major project kind of blow up around is just like too much supply. You just mint more. And it's like, if you just don't do that and then just create more demand, it's not if it will succeed, it's when. It's like a really obvious elementary school model that I think everyone can understand. Yet somewhere in between, whether it's like greed or finances or not understanding the concept, I think ultimately ruins it. But I think from our perspective, that's kind of how we look at it. Is the penguin is the penguin. I believe it's some of the best IP, not only in Web3, but I think in the world. And the more people that I get to recognize and love and know and connect with that penguin, the more demand will be created for the NFT. And if I keep the NFT supply the same, then explosive moments will happen. And they've already began to happen, but I think, you know, we're only 2 years into this, and, you know, we're building this for the long-term horizon. And I think over time, that's an unbeatable playbook to success for the company and, more importantly, the community.
Could you just mention with a sentence or two how the connection works between the NFT and the physical product?
Yeah, so just every toy that we sell comes with some sort of digital integration. The idea is, you know, you want to get them a little bit familiar with digitally collecting as quickly as possible. It's not a direct conversion, but it's something that gets people familiar. And so our concept is, how can we tie physical products with some sort of digital experience, create that familiarity, and then eventually a year, 2 years, 3 years into the life cycle of, you know, random people beginning to love and know the brand, they have some sort of touch point and familiarity around this digital universe.
Thank you. Hendrik, Nick, here you go. You have an animation background, right? And you have basically a whole animation studio involved in the Claynosaurz. What's the future look like for you? What's happening with the holders of a Clayno?
Yeah, so we kind of are an animation studio, because most of the people, or the original founding artists that started this, all come from those studios, whether it's like DreamWorks or Sony or Illumination, having built like stuff like Minions. But we actually don't see ourselves as an animation studio. What we see ourselves as is a little bit like, you know, and I don't want to be cocky saying this, but our approach, we want to be like the Pixar of Web3 eventually, and we want to incubate many IP under the same umbrella. Claynosaurz is definitely going to be the flagship. But yeah, as far as Claynosaurz is concerned, you know, there's not a lot I can say right now, but we are looking at episodic really soon and franchising the whole thing. And on the gaming side of things, it's quite similar to what Luca was saying, but, you know, always trying to protect the original PFPs, but providing a lot of like digital loops and experiences. We are building a pretty extensive app that's a little bit like, if I could describe it quickly, it'll be like Tamagotchi meets Webkins meets Pokemon Go with some like Fortnite-esque elements. And we're
sounds promising.
Yeah. With, you know, all of our physical products as well have loops that go back into this app. And the app is sort of like, you know, of course, on the NFT side of things, there's status signaling, there's itemization that you can collect. But really the way we see it is it's an aggregator for content. You know, whether it's lore-based content we're going to build, or ways that we can further incubate or sustainably develop the IP. Like if you think how Valorant and Riot Games does this, you know, they'll give you a free app or a free game, and over time the characters develop, and they're essentially incubating episodic and eventually toys and characters via a video game, and you don't even know it's happening. So that'll definitely be our approach. And it's also an aggregator and an incentivizer for creating UGC and putting it out into the world. So there'll be reward loops for people that are creating UGC as well via the app, and we're building that with a pretty well-known global video game brand. So yeah,
nice,
I'm pretty stoked about that.
Okay. So basically, put your eyes and be on the ground, to put your ear on the ground and see what's happening there. Very exciting. I'm definitely, biased, obviously, as I mentioned before. We come from the video game space, so I love this idea with user-generated content. For anyone who's not familiar with the video game industry, the problem that we foresee here, or that we had so long, specifically in Web 2, is that you pay so much money, you pay so much or invest so much time in a game, and you're merely a custodian of holding some assets for a big company, right? So you own nothing. If somebody decides to shut this thing down, then you're left alone with nothing. And so we love the idea of giving just the pure ownership model, or giving them ownership over the assets, and then eventually this can lead to interoperability, bringing assets into other games, into other worlds, creating what's, frankly, decided, or whoever is going to be the metaverse owner of the future, or multiple people, it's going to be fun. Talking about games, Hendrik, you guys with the Plooshies have a live game out, right? So that can be played with the characters. What is next on your journey there?
Yeah, so Plooshy Pileup was our first mobile game. Next month there will be a second game with a nice brand from Germany. But what we are doing as well, we are creating like our own social hub the last 11 months with a studio from London. But beside that, we are touching a completely new field, and we will launch our first YouTube series in this month. And I bring you the trailer for that you can see how it will look like.
Secret key, and nobody's gonna find me here.
Hey, you!
Huh?
Stop right there!
Oh! Don't worry! I have a plan!
I don't even know her name.
Very nice. So tell us more about this. So what's going to happen there?
Yeah, so with the Plooshies, our goal is to creating like a global laugh brand. I would say like everybody sitting here. But yeah, so it was with the YouTube series, we will start in season 2, so at the end of the year, to licensing, to give the holders the possibility to licensing with the first guys of our inner circle. So inner circle means token holder 1 till 333. So we are a collection of 3,333 Plooshies. And yeah, so this will help us to extend to also onboard Web 2 brands. So the years before the Plooshies, with GetBuff, we work with huge brands from Burger King, Amazon, BMW. So, and we see here an onboarding tool for brands from the Web 2 world, but especially also for other projects, from the Web 3 space, because we are believing in that, working together with great teams, with great brands, and then achieving that together. And YouTube will help us by that, by our only series.
Very cool. Congratulations on that. I'm very excited to see it. I wanted to get a little bit more technical. Nick, you mentioned earlier that you're on Solana, and would love to hear some insights. Why did you decide to go with Solana and not a regular EVM chain? And how is that going?
Oh yeah, I get that question all the time. And when we were minting, we were trying to make the decision whether we were going to go on the ETH side of things or Solana. And Solana just felt like the right fit for us because we're all about experiences, and UX and user experience is really an important part of entertainment. Like if I click something and I wait a couple, like 10 seconds, 20 seconds for something to happen, like that doesn't fly for me, and you lose a lot of people there. Solana is extremely, there's a lot of composability, so we wanted that as well. And there was also a lot of tech companies building their own ecosystems on Solana. And because everybody was a startup there, we understood that very quickly that we can get a lot of support and a lot of help from all these other companies trying to figure a lot of things out. And so we've been really lucky that we've always kind of pushed the boundaries on the tech side of things alongside those emerging companies, whether it's like new experiences we want to provide or new launch pads that we want to test or whatever it is. And for like airdrop rewards. We've been able to airdrop like 30,000 tokens in a split second for a fraction of the cost. It's been really special. And then the other side of things is community was a big one. Like, and I know for a lot of people it's like cheesy, and it was always an argument I was using on Solana, but Solana was there was a lot of cross-pollination. So all the projects had a lot of collectors that were collecting, like, that were combined community members. So you had community members from like Monkey DAO or DA or all the other projects. And the beauty in that is that it really actually helps propagate your brand and accrue a lot of validation early on. So if you have any one of those other projects that validate your project pre-mint, all of those collectors are going to want to be a part of that. And I think that cross-pollination played really well for us, minting out, but also in the bear market where there was a lot of like strength and unity. And on Ethereum at the time, we felt it was a little bit more siloed. So you had like Azuki collectors are Azuki collectors. You know, you had just the Bored Apes were Bored Apes collectors. And that's not 100% the case, but we felt it was like a little bit more like that. And we wanted to be a big fish in a small pond at the time as well. So
definitely understandable. I mean, I just caught myself doing the mistake that I try to always avoid. If anyone doesn't know, EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, basically meaning you have a different set of blockchains that you can select as a creator, and you know, for multiple different reasons, whatever the reasons are, you're selecting the blockchain of choice, and they're not necessarily communicate with each other, with exceptions there. But thank you very much. Community, I think, is one of the biggest drivers, or existing community, existing access to community is of great support here. Hendrik, you talked about this briefly here, just in the context of the YouTube series. So, Web2 products, Web2 brands. Why do you say Web2 brands should get involved with an NFT project? What's the benefit here? Can you give an example?
Yeah, I think Luca and Walmart and Pudgy Penguins shows what the big benefit of it is. So maybe it's a good question for Luca as well. But if you see, like, from my perspective, living in Germany and see what Walmart got for brand awareness the last couple of months, yeah, and you see the interaction on Twitter and on all social media that people are posting pictures in a Walmart. I would say like Walmart comparison with Germany, like, I don't know, like Lidl or Aldi or whatever. It's not something where you go and say like, yes, I want to post that on social media and share that with my friends or with my community. I was here. So, and tons of people doing that. So it's the first time that these brands have the possibility to get brand awareness and to upload their own brand. And from the other side, if you choose, and I think that's the most important thing for brands, that they choose wisely which brand they will work with together. Because we have seen a lot of brands who say like, yeah, I'm a brand, yeah, I'm a successful, I will do my own thing. And I think everybody knows in the room, most of them are not more on the blockchain or not more like being on an NFT project. So the most important thing, if I would be a brand, and I'm talking with a lot of brands right now, is like choose your project wisely and then have like a 3 to 5 years plan. And then, if you want to work with ThePlooshies, I can give you like 10 different options how we can bring you to Web3. And then, we will find a way that you have success together with us.
So tapping into the younger generations and creating community around this for your brand, that's kind of like the key for you.
Yeah, I think this is the most important thing, that brands have to understand that you can create fans outside there. So it's like free marketing for you. Like if you see like how many people are posting about the case with Walmart and the Pudgy Penguins, so these are your brand ambassadors. Yeah, so you give them the freedom to create something about your IP, and they will help you to reach out millions of people.
Luca, you're obviously there very much in the limelight, and I just saw your recent Forbes article about you. Congrats on that. It's like a little bit more of a traditional conservative publication. What do you think needs to happen also, or how has the conversation changed around NFTs, Web3? What can we do to help people to understand the medium?
I think just do and fulfill on the promises of 2-3 years ago, I think, is probably the best thing that you can do from a team and a founding team perspective. From a community perspective, just keep believing, keep championing. This stuff logically is obvious, no matter what what stage in the cycle we are in. This stuff is going to work, and it's going to be meaningful at some point in time. And once we kind of break through that plateau, I think sky's the limit. And then from a team perspective, I was talking to our team the other day, but I was like, we are fighting we're battling the mistakes of a lot of people before us. And that's not easy. It's actually pretty difficult because a lot of people once made a lot of money, but have now since lost a lot of money off of false promises that have never come to fruition. And so it's our job to lead by example, and to make sure that when we say something, we do it, and we continue to push boundaries and break barriers, and that's the best that you can do.
Yeah, we definitely have experienced that a lot, going to conferences like Gamescom. Meetings have been canceled after they found out that we wanted to talk about Web3. So it's definitely still a shock moment where people are distrustful, I think, and we're going to change this slowly. Nick, you want to add something?
Yeah, I don't even think we have to educate. I think it would be ludicrous to say that like the job of these projects is to educate people on NFTs. I think that'll just happen. Like Luca says, it's a natural trajectory for where all of this is heading. Like digital ownership makes sense in the world. IP incubation via NFTs just makes sense. Art collecting, you name it. Like the world is heading there. Like, I don't believe that. Don't tell me that gamers won't expect to absolutely own the skins of like the products that they were playing with in the future.
And they're paid for also.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the world is heading there. So the reality of it is, it's just on us to do well, to do a good job, and to kind of lead the charge, and deliver on the promises, to explore new ways of doing things. For example, our products have NFTs tied to them, like the physicals. That'll be normal in 2-3 years. It'll just be normal. Most toy companies are looking into that stuff. Again, there's a gray zone when people say NFTs. Like I've presented at conferences like with NVIDIA and stuff, and you talk NFTs and they're just like tinfoil hat. But at the same time, in light of what's happening now in the world, let's say we're talking about entertainment, everybody can see that it is a paradigm shift, that you can actually leverage that tech to build communities around a product, that digital ownership makes sense, and that NFTs actually, the way blockchain works is something we very much understand in the real world. It's just property rights, and it just makes sense, and I think it's just all heading there.
Yeah, I think we did ourselves a disservice in the beginning, inventing a lot of different new words that were alienating a lot of the consumers that could have been consumers. But I agree with you, plowing forward and really also inviting more people to join us in this battle, basically, and bring cool projects to light that will just make everybody happier and successful in this space. So we are about to end the panel series here, or the panel conversation. I want you to prepare a couple of questions, please, if you have some. But I want to end this with a question. While I have you all here, obviously you all have your own projects and kind of compete around the attention maybe of these different consumers, but you don't really seem like competitors to me. So why is that? And we kind of like dabbled into this a little bit when we were saying, hey, it's about community, about creating. How would you describe, and I want to hear from all of you, how do you describe the ethos around Web3? Go ahead, Luca.
He's on a different chain, so
I knew that was coming.
If he was on the same chain, we would be.
It's getting tougher.
It'd be a little more.
We could still be friends.
We'd still be friends, but a little bit different approach. And he's family. He's a penguin, and he's been my guy since as early as I can remember in the Pudgy Penguin days. So I want to see him win, and a ton of community members are in the Plooshies. So I'm championing for their win. And then he's on a different chain. If he was on our chain, it'd be a different story. But yeah.
I think Yeah, he's on a different chain. No, I'm kidding. So I've been building IP for most of my professional life, usually for like the big guys, right? And the reality of it is there is space for all of them. Sure, you might have many products built around dinosaurs, many products built around, like penguins or animals or whatever, but the reality of it is I could be a fan of Pudgies as much as I could be a fan of Minions, as much as I could be a fan of like Miraculous Ladybug, Jurassic Park, all that stuff. There's room for all of that in my brain as a consumer. And all I have to do is just enjoy it. It's not the same as a tech play. A tech play, like, you can't have a million different Uber-type companies. Like, it just doesn't make sense because it's all based on utility. But when it's based on emotional utility and entertainment, there is room for absolutely everybody. There's so many singers out there. There's so many artists, and it can work for all of them. Same way it works for many YouTube content creators. And I think the second thing is, if you're operating inside of an ecosystem, what's the point of being in that ecosystem if it's not healthy? And the way for that to be healthy is a lot of good products being built on that ecosystem. And in this case, it's all of Web3. And so you want all of these companies to succeed. Like for me, I would like everyone here to be present in the next 10 years. Same with Doodles, Azuki, you name it. Like all of those teams, if we're all showing up together at like licensing expos, we'll know that we've changed the game. And I think it's a really special thing. And I think it's like right now, because there might be a little bit of a gray zone for NFTs, I think strength in numbers is really important for many good products or IPs to be built across all blockchains. I think is extremely important.
Yeah, I will go with the word of Nick, but I want to adjust. I think 99% of the NFT projects are like scam about the last 3 years. So I think it's very important that we have like teams like Luca, like Cap, like us, and others that they show the world that NFTs are not scams. Yeah, that the NFT is the future.
I think you were saying basically bringing happiness to the people, right? So when I started coming out of my marketing firm and started in video games, it was such a great experience going to all these conferences and then going to other booths, or people would come to ours and they're like, oh, that's a great game, and come to my booth and play my game. That's awesome, right? It's like grown-up guys being kids again. It's fun. And I want to champion you guys because in this context here, in this new world, successes, different levels, whatever it is, but you're trailblazers in creating an environment that is fun for people, creating value for people, creating something that they want to get involved, creating community. And so, it's great to see that you're doing this together and, creating, paving the way for others to come after, but creating it in the right way and doing this together. I love that. Thank you very much indeed. Please, a round of applause for our panelists here.